So it's the off season now in Formula One, which means we're a bit bored. There's no races to look forward to for what, another 3 weeks if I'm not wrong? Yeah. Final weekend of this month is when you get to see another race. So that's a bit boring, kind of like the season has been.
Bit?
I mean, very.
It's more boring than having like Max Verstappen win multiple times consecutively.
So like this season then?
Yeah.
And the second half of last season then? Yeah, but still, no Formula One, which means we're not very happy chappies because, of course, we enjoy watching that sport. And especially nice considering we were coming off like back-to-back race weekends where you didn't have the gap. Yeah. And now from there, nothing.
And also, we love talking about it here on sports today. So
exactly.
we missed doing that. So we just came up with the topic.
We just came up with something that actually caught both of our attention. We're looking at it and we're like, is this theoretically possible? I'm sure you've read the title. So the question, of course, is would Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time Formula One world champion, be giving Max Verstappen a bit more trouble in the current Red Bull car, which even he's admitted is probably the fastest he's seen any F1 car go, and this is the same guy who dominated the championship for like 7 years. So that says something about how good a car it is that Red Bull and Adrian Newey have come up with.
Yeah, but let's talk about it, right? If Lewis was in Checo's place, would Max Verstappen be, having the season that he is? Because I don't think so.
No, I definitely don't think so, because again, and this is just not something that's coming from either one of us. There are people who within the paddock too have pretty much said that if, and to be fair, Perez has copped a lot of criticism from not just fans but even Red Bull executives. Of course, Helmut Marko has not been very kind to him. He said that, it's good to see Perez driving well in Belgium because he's now finally, and I'm quoting him here, he said he's woken up from his championship dream.
Oh no.
Oof. Ouch! Bad, that's terrible. But interestingly, there was another quote of Marco where he said that there's only 2 drivers on the grid right now who could beat Verstappen in the same car.
Yeah.
And he said one of them was Hamilton and the other is Alonso.
Yes, exactly. But there are a few, in favor arguments when we talk about it. Look at Mercedes in 2020-21 when Lewis and Bottas, that was your P1, P2 for a whole season.
Yeah.
So that was pretty evident that it was the car, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, I think...
You're talking 2020 rather, because 21 was... Yeah, 20 was the year when Verstappen was...
Exactly. So, is it something that could happen if Lewis is in a Red Bull? Because we've also looked at Red Bull's history. If you look at Red Bull's history, you know that the car is more suited for Max and his aggressive sort of driving. Yeah. Because we've seen Alex Albon also have a very miserable time at Red Bull. And when Checo came in, he did not have a very good time as
Till now, I feel like he's not gotten on top of that car.
Exactly, and remember the crashes that Albon used to have.
Even Gasly for that matter. There were times when Gasly, by the way, not only would he crash, but there were occasions when he would be lapped by Verstappen in the same car. That is, again, full credit to him that he managed to recover from that. But that's not a good look. But again, if you're talking about the in-favor arguments, again, we've had Lewis, and people tend to forget this, that even the first 3 years of the turbo hybrid era, when it was just Mercedes versus Mercedes, Nico Rosberg gave him a massive fight.
Yeah.
14, 15, then beat him in 16. So it's not like he's had just one-way domination. I think he completely had the wood over Bottas. Bottas was someone who maybe beat him in qualifying sometimes, but could never do it in race.
That was also because, most of the times when Bottas was ahead of Lewis Hamilton in qualifying, it was because he had rebelled against the team strategies. Because it was always let Lewis pass, or let him have the final.
I have a defense to that. The only time they put team orders was when Bottas was out of the title. Never has it been in a first race that they tell Bottas let him go, because if you go from 19 he won in Australia, Bottas. After that, Lewis won the next 2, then Bottas won another, but then Lewis ended up going on a bit of a run, which ruled Bottas out of the title. Then they started applying team orders. Same would happen any year prior, even in 2020, when the season finally started, and that was a delayed season. The first race, it was Bottas who won. Thereafter, Hamilton had the wood on him for 2-3 races, and there was no strategy calls involved, which is, okay, fair. At that point, they were the only 2 drivers who were competing, so you let them go for it. Same thing would happen even with Rosberg for that matter. Team orders were never put in place unless one or the other would have been out of the championship. And to be fair, we've seen even with Hamilton now, there have been times he's been okay to let Russell by. Okay, he's quicker on the day, let him go.
Yeah. But also think about like McLaren right now, because the car is good. Piastri and Lando both are
competing.
Both are competing with each other. So that's another in favor argument. For for against arguments, look at McLaren because again,
if you go back to 2007,
where?
7.
No, just go back a few years. Danny and Lando. Lando was having a merry time.
And Daniel Ricciardo was not, to put it politely.
Exactly.
But
so I think those
it's interesting then you mentioned Ricciardo because the only other person who's consistently
Red
beaten,
Bull.
Verstappen in a Red Bull has been Ricciardo, who did so over like a season and a half. He was at least matching him, if not outright beating him, which is saying something. So it is proof that I think if you have, and by the way, Verstappen and Ricciardo are two very different kind of drivers as well. Styles are drastically different. So in that sense also, I do think that if you put a Lewis in that car, obviously I think the Mercedes cars in the last few years have been far more suited to his style of driving. The Red Bull is definitely more suited to Verstappen because Verstappen, I think he's still young. He has that extra aggression that you saw from a young Lewis. Now you don't see it from him anymore because he's kind of an elder statesman. He's like, no, I'll do it smoothly. I don't need to be overly aggressive or stuff like that. Of course, it has happened on occasion.
Yeah, but then compare it to where Checo is right now. I think Checo is much older than Lewis.
Same age, more or less.
Same age.
Not same age exactly. I think Hamilton is about 37, 38, and Sergio is about 34, 35. So there's not that much difference.
But
exactly.
Still, like when you look at their careers, I think Checo is much like farther into his career because Lewis still has a lot of potential if you look at it.
Yeah, that is because, and sorry about that, that's your mic. Apologies for that, can't be helped. That is actually because with Perez, you feel like he's been around much longer because it's taken him this long to get to a top team. With Lewis, he started his career at McLaren, was in race-winning machinery, then went to Mercedes, ended up becoming world beaters there, but it was always race-winning machinery. With Perez, he's kind of had to struggle in that regard.
Exactly, that's what I was saying, is that Lewis has been your proven winner, right? He's won so many world championships, you must count at this point.
7.
But, no.
Should have been 8.
Yeah, should have been 8. But anyway, Lewis still has a lot of potential and he is a much more accomplished, not in the terms that he has a lot of world titles, in the terms that he is actually better at driving.
In fact, if you're looking at it from an overall sense, I think, and this is something where I think it's interesting if you contrast, say, a Perez and a Bottas. Okay, they're two very different drivers in the sense that Perez is far better in the race. So he's someone who will overtake well, is aggressive whilst defending. He's good there. What is his shortcoming? Always been qualifying. Never been a great qualifier. He doesn't come close to matching Verstappen in the same car. He's never come close. I think he's generally, how many times, and now that you think about it, if you go back to dominant duos or a team in a Doha producing a dominant car, their drivers are more often than not be 1-2. You'll remember the same for Schumacher, Barrichello at Ferrari. For that matter, if you're thinking about it, even Hamilton, Rosberg, Hamilton, Bottas, these guys were always 1-2. How many 1-2s can you remember in the Verstappen Checo era? Barely any, because he's never been a great qualifier. With Bottas, it's the opposite. He's a little too nice when it comes to the races. Over a single lap, that guy's got rocket pace. So he was someone who could actually beat Lewis in qualifying on occasion. But again, when it came to the races, he'd just end up falling behind. So if you actually combine Bottas's qualifying versus Perez's race pace, you've got the ideal driver. But with Perez, again, that one thing is severely lacking, and that's why he's unable to even come close to matching Verstappen, because he might be able to fight through the pack. But by the time he reaches Verstappen, then Verstappen is there somewhere in the distance.
Valid points. But I was comparing Checo with Lewis.
And see, that's the thing. With Lewis too, he's a complete driver. He's someone you know in the fastest car can and will qualify at least second, if not first. That is the difference between a Perez and a Hamilton, because that is why, even if you remember 2021, how I long for another season like that, because even though I know things got very bad, but it was at least competitive. You were seeing the ebb and flow. It would change from circuit to circuit, and more often than not, it just depended on who had the better lap on the day. It was that close. Now you know Verstappen is qualifying first. You hope he makes a mistake in the race, he doesn't. And maybe Perez can catch him, he doesn't. You're just hoping for things to happen which are outside of your control, which just don't happen. So you actually do need the only other person, actually, if you have to add people who could maybe beat him, I'd say Leclerc. Alongside, say, an Alonso. Yes, in the same car. I mean, to be fair, Leclerc had the beating of Verstappen for a good chunk of the first half of the 22 season. People forget that because Ferrari just, did Ferrari things.
And I also also remember during the Mercedes dominance era, Leclerc was someone who used to give a good fight.
I'll never forget. I think if you're talking about that, not just to even Verstappen, to even Hamilton, there were two races in 2019. One was, of course, a Spa, which was, I think, Leclerc's first win and a very emotional one because Antoine Hubert had passed away on the same weekend. That was one, and the other was Monza, where they were in a.
Pierre Gasly.
No, not Monza in the same year, 2019, when it was Leclerc versus Hamilton, and this was the Silver Arrows, and he ended up forcing him off the road. It was very hard but very fair. I was like, man, this guy has got something in him. That was the season that basically convinced Ferrari that no, time to move on from the Vettel experiment. It's time to invest in Leclerc. Yeah, so Charles, another one who I think can, in the right machinery, beat this thing. But there's very few drivers. Perez, unfortunately, not one of them. So not much of it. But okay, let's.
I think Checo has just really mellowed down with time, and now he's just in against such an aggressive driver.
Force of nature.
Aggressive car. He just isn't. I don't know. Something's gone wrong.
But okay, let's assume for the sake of it, and we seem to be on the same page in the sense that we do think.
Lewis would be better.
Let's say just one point. If you had to think against it, if there had to be anything, what would it be?
I would say that the car is more suited to Max. That's all. That's the only.
I'll give a second one. Age. Why? When I say age, I don't mean age in the sense of he's losing his ability. No, the right car still has the ability, but Verstappen has that kind of aggression that comes with youth.
I know.
Lewis doesn't.
Recklessness.
Borderline recklessness. With Lewis, he tends to kind of, in fact, I remember even in 21, he at times, I admitted afterwards that look, he was just being too aggressive and I was just not doing anything, so I kind of had to get my elbows out. Of course, if he gets into that mode, maybe yes. But he seems to be a lot more mellow now than, say, 27 to 10, 11.
But he still has it.
No, he'll still bring it out when it comes to it. So actually, maybe you're right. Maybe the only thing would be if the car is really built more around Max versus Lewis, because they do have different driving styles. That would be the only thing stopping him. But of course, that's what we feel about this. What do you guys think? Well, you can let us know that in the comments. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap that bell. Also follow us across social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course,
don't forget to download the Sportstech app.
Plus, if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done. For now though, from Gargi and me, it's bye-bye.